On my night of the accident, I was on my way home from my friend's house, helping them move into their new apartment. Probably around 10:30 or 11. It was raining that night, so I was taking it easy, actually. On my way home, probably a mile and a half, 2 miles from my house, there was a car pulled off to the side of the road, flashers on, everything. Didn't think anything of it. I went to go around him, and right at the last second, he pulled out. I had to swerve to miss him, and my car hit a culvert on the side of the road and flipped multiple times.
Probably the worst call any parent ever expects. Certainly the worst one I ever had. It was the hospital, and it was an intern that called and said that he had been in a bad accident and that he was in City Hospital emergency, that they were going to be moving him shortly to intensive care, and could I please come down? I went almost the same exact route that he was coming home. So I knew as soon as I saw the lights that it had to be his scene, because the road was closed. I knew Franklin Fire Department and the police department had the road shut down. The highway patrol was there, and really, honestly, at that point thought, there's probably no way he's going to live through this if he is still alive. And I mean, I knew at least at one point he was still alive, and so my thought was to, hurry up and get to the hospital so I could at least see him before whatever was going to happen. Right around midnight, when I'd gotten to the hospital, they just did not pull any punches. I mean, the doctor in ER came out and said, this is really bad. We're not sure if he's going to make it through the night. He's got a broken back. He's probably going to be a paraplegic. And they said, we might as well tell you, he may even end up being a quadriplegic if he lives.
He had a serious injury. He was ejected from a car, really thrown outside the vehicle. And as you can imagine, there's no protection from that. Justin had a very serious fracture, and at the top end of what's called the thoracic spine, that's the chest vertebra, and he sustained the most serious kind of those fractures, which is not only a burst fracture, which is a crushing injury of the vertebra with the stabilizing aspect of the spine, but also a dislocation. So it's not just fractured or crushed, but it's out of position. And the whole purpose of the spine is to protect the spinal cord. And if you have a fracture dislocation, by very definition, it'll cause spinal cord injury. His surgery was done fairly promptly within the first 4 or 5 hours after his injury. And you can see the number of screws and rods that were necessary.
It was almost a 5-hour surgery, and he came out and told us that, he'd made it through the surgery and he was doing really well, but that there was a 99% chance he was never going to walk again.
So my discussion with the patient and his mother that was pretty blunt, that I thought that was a complete injury, and that's most likely what we'd be dealing with.
I really don't remember the accident or anything. All I know was I was in a car accident. I always kept asking about my car, what would happen to it. The first time I remember, I sat up. It took me probably 10 seconds. They sat me up in bed. That was the first time. And I got lightheaded. I had to sit back down and everything. And I remember one day, I was laying in bed and my nurse walked by. I was like, hey, can you go grab James? He was my therapist. And so he came in. I was like, is it weird that I can like move my legs and toes a little bit? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And so I showed him. I mean, it moved barely, like maybe a millimeter. I could like barely flex my toe or something. But from that point on, then he was like, oh, we're gonna try and get you back on your feet then, since you can actually start moving and everything was starting to come back around.
I'll never forget the day they had kind of told me they were going to try to get him to take a couple steps, but we weren't going to tell him until we were down in the therapy room, and the whole place had cleared out and every therapist was there because they honestly believed. Do you remember that? And it was very cool, because they were like, he just kind of looked at him, his therapist James, and he's just like, okay, walk. And he's like, what? And he goes, yeah, walk. And he did. He took a step, and then he took another step. And the whole, everybody was applauding and crying and cheering.
The next time I saw him, approximately 6 or 8 weeks after surgery, he came in and actually was able to stand up and walk, which I didn't recognize as the same patient. I thought it was someone different. And so he was obviously very proud, and we thought it was just awesome that he recovered.
Dr. Miller did start to cry when he saw it, because he turned and he looked at me and he said, you know what I told you the day of the surgery? And I said, yes, sir, I do. And I said, he's our walking miracle. And it's funny because when Justin's gone back like 3 times since then, and he hollers down the hall, "There's my miracle patient," and it's kind of cool. It's very cool.
I'm just happy to be here. My first goal was to actually like get back on my feet and be able to walk without any assistance. Then get back to work, which I'm doing that now. I'm working now 8 to 5 every day, but by the time that the day is over, I'm pretty tired. I gotta go home and put ice on them, relax for about 20 minutes or so. But every day it keeps getting better.
We have 4 fellowship-trained spinal surgeons here at the Crystal Clinic, and all of us have specialty training in spinal trauma. And so it's not uncommon for us any month to have anywhere from 6 to 12 operative cases from spinal trauma. So we have a large volume of cases, and I think that that's important for trauma care and also advanced training in those techniques. So I think that we're one of the United States leading centers, believe it or not, for trauma care. I think prompt attention and meticulous detail and really being there for patients is important, and obviously one of the most gratifying cases we've ever had.